The start of a new decade is always a time for reflection. It's a time to look back at innovators, visionaries, and the shared history that have gotten us to where we are today.
Two main things make a specific bottle collectible. Firstly, its rarity, because it's a limited edition or because it's closed distillery, and secondly, its presentation. And Karuizawa really ticks both of those boxes. It's a closed distillery that has an incredible reputation historically, and the repackaging that people have done over the last few years give it this absolute beauty. Japanese whiskey has been historically dominated by the company I work for, by Suntory, and they were famous for producing blended whiskies, and many competitors arose in the 30s to 50s, including Ocean Sanraku. And one of their distilleries was, of course, Karuizawa, and in the 1970s, the world of whiskey was changing, and they released the first ever Japanese single malt. And unfortunately, whilst it didn't work out too well at the time, the style they were making of Golden Promise barley with rich sherried flavors is incredibly popular now. So despite the fact that the distillery is closed, because that liquid still exists, because it's so rare, because it's so different, it's incredibly collectible. One really interesting thing is the fact that many of the original producers of Japanese whiskey intended to make whiskey for the everyman. It's part of Shinjiro Tori's original dream. But in the end, it goes to auction and it achieves incredible prices. Between Karuizawa and Yamazaki, you have two of the most collectible and expensive secondary market whiskies in the entire world.
2020 was said to be a big year for Japanese whisky, Japanese sport and Japanese culture. Unfortunately, it's now likely to be remembered for the year that never was. Despite the moment of perfection not arriving this year, we wanted to honour those that pursue perfection through whisky distilling, art and sports people. The Budō Collection is the perfect name for this set of Karuizawa whiskies, as Budo is the way of life which martial artists lead in order to perfect their craft. We found similarities in the way that martial artists lead their life, to the way artists lead their life, to the way whisky distillers lead their life. All of it revolves around precision, timing, strength and speed.
The traditions of Budo are very important, and it comes in the form of etiquette and respect.
Budo is a collective term for martial ways. Bu means martial, Do means way. And within that are a group of martial ways or traditional sports of Japan. For us, the concept of Budo could be defined as a modern warrior's lifestyle. I believe that we share an affinity with street artists, whiskey makers, and ourselves as kendo practitioners. Through our integrity, we have an integrity that we need to understand what we're doing. We need to have a regime, a code to follow, and in that way we can then give the best to what we are doing. By practicing now in the present, we safeguard for the future what we learned from the past.
The Budoka are also, in a way, artists. We look for and create the moment, the right timing, the right opportunity with a perfect technique, and that needs to come with a perfect harmony. We are trying to create this very spectacular moment for which we train hard to polish the mind and the body and its harmony together. And that's, I believe, it's the samurai spirit, and that's the biggest connection between us.
When designing anything for such an iconic distillery as Karuizawa, I have to have a great respect for Japanese culture and make sure we represent everything with the highest care and attention to detail. We have three very iconic sports from Japan. We have kendo, sumo and karate. We selected three different street artists with their own very specific styles. We have the shinai, which is, you can see on the side here, for kendo, and we have the dragonflies. The proverb is dragonflies don't retreat, they never go backwards. We have the yokozuna, which is the main prominent feature of this, Yokozuna being the highest ranking sumo wrestler. The background of this is based on a fan, which is used in sumo wrestling itself now in modern times. Masayama, he was considered to be the first most influential style of full contact karate. He was dedicated to it throughout his whole life. The sun in the background is symbolic of Japan, of the land and the rising sun.
When deciding what to look for in an asset, consider these things. Number one, condition. Condition plays a huge role in the longevity of their value. Number two, provenance. Provenance is very important and can add value to any collectible. And number three, things that are made in low quantity. The fewer the items that are available, the more desirable they can be. In the last few years, Japanese whiskey has attracted the attention of collectors after a few bottles sold for well over $300,000. There is a shortage of good Japanese whiskey, therefore the stock is scarce and the prices have doubled.
For what we've seen for the past 8 years, the demand for Japanese whiskey, with what has been manifest for this year, even we're under the COVID lockdown, and we're still seeing people collecting, buying and drinking. The market is going to be very healthy in the future. And also we're seeing a new group of people, and collecting Japanese whiskey or collecting whiskey is become a trend. I think each Karuizawa mostly is come from single barrel. Some of Karuizawa could be as low as like 12 bottle release only. If you look at Karuizawa, they're different with other distilleries. They're releasing in different kind of version, and this make it unique for collector who want to actually collect the entire series for their own collection.
For those of us that love whiskey, it's a properly, almost indescribable experience when you get to try something that you've been longing to taste for many years, or maybe it's particularly rare, because it's a moment that can never be recaptured. Many of these whiskeys will never be made again. They'll never be exactly the same. And it's almost like being allowed to have a private viewing of the Mona Lisa just before someone burns it. It's that special moment that you're going to experience something intensely complex, intensely interesting from a historical perspective, and also nothing you can achieve again.
Our Budō Collection is one of the most amazing, beautiful whisky collections of all time. From the hand-painted artwork on the front to the iconic liquid inside and the beautifully handcrafted wooden doyo stand, this is a whisky collection like you will never see again in your lifetime.